Okay, so here we have the profile page, and right now it's using the color scheme that is default, that comes default with Bootstrap, where the headers have this light grayish tinge. Also, the text is not quite black, right? It's a dark gray. So let's try to override that. You'll find yourself overriding Bootstrap quite often, right? And so there's a proper way of overriding those styles. Perhaps you don't like the rounded corners. Maybe you don't like the highlighting that it uses. You're going to find yourself overriding this, right? You don't want it to look like any other generic Bootstrap web page out there, right? So you want to make it your own, right? Maybe a different font, maybe a different look and feel. So let's see. So typically what we would do is we would try and look at the HTML that comes along with having used a code snippet from Bootstrap, right? And see what styling Bootstrap gave it, right? So for instance, here's that div that declares that nav bar at the header at the top, right there. Notice that we have some colors here. See that? So it looks like that's what's changing the color of that header right there, right? So for instance, we can start playing around with this, right? So it looks like it's using some kind of gray. Notice that it's E7, 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 right? The way this works is that this is a hexadecimal number, right? That it's broken up into 3 parts, okay? The first 2 tell us how much red do we want. The next 2 is how much green do we want, and the last one is how much blue do we want. Right? Basically, it's using some RGB coloring scheme, and since they are all the same, red, green, and blue are all the same, then you get some version of gray. Yes. So if you have these be all equal, 12, 12, 12, 12. Oh, that's border. No, let's try the background color. If you have 12, 12, 12. Notice it's some form of gray. It's a very dark gray. Let's have another one, 45, 45, 45. That's another. It's a little lighter. You have then you have all the way up to 99, 99, 99. It keeps getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Okay. The lightest is an hexadecimal F, right? FF, right? So for instance, following 99, 99, 99, the next number in hexadecimal is to have some letters using A, right? So AA, A1, A1, A1. That gets even lighter. A9, A9, A9. That's even lighter. Then you get into the B's, the C's, the D's, all the way up to the F's, right? So you have maybe D9, D9. Oops, sorry. D9, D9, D9. That's even lighter, all the way to the FF, 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 which is white. Okay. So you can change it to be anything you want. Here, if we remove this, the browser gives you some example of predefined known names for some colors. Okay, some aquamarine if you want aquamarine, or some other color, chocolate. Okay, and whatever color you're free to choose for the assignment. Make sure that whatever you choose has a nice contrast. Right? Don't choose something that is very light with some font that is also light that you can't read it. Yes.
Is there any way to see the hexadecimal of like the name colors there?
Maybe. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it has a color chooser, and this is also one way, right, of choosing the colors that you want. Okay. And also the color, you might want to choose the color because we chose something that's darker. Perhaps the color should be something maybe white. I guess that didn't work. Let's see who sets the color for the fonts. Let's see, maybe not here. Let's go further in. Let's make that change first, right? So we made the change for the background color. Perhaps the border color. We also want to make some color that is somewhat related. Okay, so maybe something darker. There it is. Okay, so we want to change those two things. All right. So notice that it's being applied to the .navbar-default. Okay, so that's a class that we copied from Bootstrap, and we want to override it. So what we're going to do, notice that in the profile page, we are loading first the Bootstrap, the default Bootstrap min.css. Yes, and notice that we're loading our own styles.css. Right, and notice that we're loading it in that order. Okay, so first all the styles are loaded from Bootstrap, that color things in grayish and whatnot, but then comes our style sheet, right? So whatever style that, if we reuse any classes that Bootstrap had used, if we redefine them in our style sheet, they're going to override whatever Bootstrap says. All right, so let's do that. Let's come here and let's grab this rule. Let's just copy this rule right there. Copy that. Let's come into our style sheet and I'll paste it in here. Right, and there it is. Notice that it even copied over the fact that color had a strike through. See that, which was commented out. We don't really need that. So there it is. So now here we're overriding a style, a class that was already defined by Bootstrap. If we reload the page, notice that change has been made permanent. Okay. Notice that our IDE, our browser is telling us that Bootstrap was already defining this class with these colors. But notice that it has a strike through saying that these have been overwritten, and they're being overwritten by a file in styles.css that has a different color for the background color and a different color for the border. Make sense? Right? So here we're using the fact that the order in which they're being declared matters. Right? There is an inconsistency. Right? The browser sees an inconsistency. We have two rules, right? And they're both vying for the color and background color of the same element, right? And the browser needs to decide, right? They have exactly the same specificity, right? They look exactly the same. So the only thing that is left to the browser is the order of the document, right? The document order. In which order are they declared? Which one is closest to the element? Since my style sheet is closest to the element, it's defined later, it overrides my previous rule. Make sense? All right. Notice that my choice of styling, yes?
So when we're overriding Bootstrap classes,
yeah.
Is it also alright to declare a second CSS class? So say for our header, declare some class that is going to be div header or something like that.
Sure.
And then implement that as well, or is that
No. Yeah, so some might go farther, right, and apply an outer div, right, that grabs the entire page, right, and adds it a class, right, that says this is mine, right. This is a class that might say webdev, right, or whatever 3 letters that you might choose. Maybe JGA, my own. A 3-letter what do you call them? Initials. Thank you. And then add additional specificity and say that this is the JGA and this is my profile page, right? Right. And then outside in your style sheet, you could pre-pen all your rules, right, by adding that. These are all only should be applied to pages that are mine, right? And be specific that these are pages that I created, right? And all these rules have to follow that order, right? So that it's understood. Meaning, if this were a page that I didn't create and I didn't tag, they should not follow this rule. Okay. All right. So we chose this color scheme where the text here is there's not good contrast, right? So you'll be evaluated also in your projects, your assignments, to make sure that you choose a color scheme. You can choose whatever you want, right? But the grading will be based on something more broader, as in is there good contrast? Can I read that text? right? I don't really care about the colors, but I do like that. Make sure that the contrast is there so they can read it. If you chose a different color scheme, make sure that you also change an appropriate color for the text, right? So this might be, you might decide that this is white. Okay. So that means that we need to override it. We'll grab that rule. And bring it over and say, starting with JGA and .navbar default navbar brand color white. Okay? To make it permanent that text is already readable. Make sense? Again, you're free to choose, but make sure that whatever you choose has good contrast. Okay? All right. So next, what I'd like to be able to introduce is the grid system. Right? Grid systems are very important for being able to display content that might be several columns wide, and you like to display it in more columns if you have the space, but you want it to be adaptable so that you only use a single column when it's a small screen like a phone. Right? So let's introduce that now.